Welcome to the Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of the Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to the Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life. One of the most interesting things that I've learned over the last few years is how important it is to listen without knowing. And that's really listening without having judgment, without making an effort to answer something that's coming from someone's mouth before you even know what they're saying. We start hearing the first few words in a sentence and we already think we know exactly everything somebody's going to say. And when we do that, we really take away the opportunities for us to connect more with human beings. It takes away opportunities for us to learn. It even takes away from opportunities from us to really form relationships beyond the day-to-day relationships that we experience. And we believe at Imagine Miracles that community is so important. Today's guest is going to talk to us about the importance of holding space to be able to truly hear and listen to someone, to not hold judgment at the same time that you're trying to hold space. So Matt's going to share with us the importance of holding space, and he's also going to share the miracle in his life that's really taught him how to be able to hold the space, to be authentic, and really be the best podcaster, the best actor, the best therapist, and most importantly, the best human being he can be. Today's guest is very special and unique, and because of that, Matt Marr needs a unique introduction, so here we go. A therapist, podcaster, and all-around great guy, Matt has even been called by some the white male Oprah. He admits he doesn't really know about that title, but Matt does love giving a place for people to share their story in the hopes of changing viewers' lives for the better. He's been known to say, "I'm going to let Oprah do her, and I'll do me." He grew up in southern Oklahoma, and he just can't seem to lose that accent. Matt's a lover of stories. From his early days of acting to getting an undergrad in opera to getting a master's in clinical psychology and working with the clients, stories are his life. Matt is known as the guy who can talk to anyone. He always calls you sugar. People open up to him within 2 minutes of meeting him, and his ideal night is having a glass of wine and knitting away at a baby blanket while watching old Wonder Woman reruns, as his dog sits and snores on the other end of the couch. Find him at a comic book store nerding out for hours, and when he feels fat because he ate his feelings, going to Richard Simmons' class in Beverly Hills is maybe one of the most joyous things anyone can do on a Saturday morning, especially when Matt's suggesting it. He won 2 game shows and is kind of charmed that way. Hopeful, caring, warm, great stand-up. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Matt Marr. Well, Matt Marr, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
I am ready. I'm very ready. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Matt. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here. Matt was actually the very first podcast that I ever gave an interview on, and I've been waiting for this opportunity to bring him back on and share him with the imagination and really bring us to a place that we can understand how many amazing people are out there in the world bringing themselves in a way that really affect each and every one of us. So once again, thanks, Matt. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. By the way, I did not know I don't remember that you were my first. I was your first interview because you were so good. I was terrible my first interview. So Kudos. You were great. So to tell everybody a little bit what I do is that I'm a therapist. I'm also a podcaster. I'm a stand-up comedian. I do a lot of different things, but my main focus is I'm hopefully I feel like a space holder. And I don't mean like Star Wars, even though I love them, but I mean a space holder for people to really kind of to find out who they are, who they want to be, and really a space just to ask good questions. Because I think a lot of times we get in spaces where we can't ask questions. So, but I do a lot of that through my podcast, The Dear Maddie Show.
Excellent. It's very interesting. Mary's my wife. We were talking just earlier today on some examples that we got just in the last week or so on how hard it is for people to hold space. So because of that, I'm going to go a little bit off of my flow here and ask you, share with us how you share space. Give us some examples and maybe some tips on holding space for people.
I think the number one, if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, what do you mean by hold space? So everybody has their own definition. Again, as the type of therapist I am, and the narrative therapist, it's all about what are people's own definitions of their life. So for me, holding space it's listening. It's also being okay with being uncomfortable, and it's okay with being vulnerable, and kind of when I hold space, I don't hold space and hold judgment very well at the same time. I don't really think those work well together. So when I'm holding space, I'm not holding judgment. So that's kind of my definition of it. And as far as how the first thing I do to hold space is, honestly, it's really just two things. It's focus on my breath and listen to what the other person is telling me. Because when I do those two things, then I kind of check my ego at the door that either wants to respond defensively, or that's hurt, or that's scared. And when I breathe and when I listen, truly listen, then I'm able to kind of check in and hold that space.
Much needed for the therapist world, but even I'm learning as a podcaster to be able to sit back and listen and really hear the story and really find the heart of the people that you're talking with is very important. And one of the things for sure that I know that you bring to the world is heart. I've followed you since I first learned about your podcast and coming on it. I've been following you, and Mary and I talk about you quite a bit, actually. Tell us what your mission is in the world.
I think my mission is just, I really have known this luckily for a while. My mission is honestly just to help other people feel valid on this planet and in this earth, feel like they matter, feel like they're not alone. And that's really what I feel like kind of my mission on this. It's pretty simple. I felt that way since, honestly, I was I felt that way since I was like 8 years old.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I knew my mission, I think, when I was 5, and I conveniently forgot it until I was 50. So it took me 45 years to get it back. So I'm so happy for you that you were able to hold on to that. And
I've let go of it a couple of times. We get back, Vince. It's not, I've got a grip sometimes.
Excellent. The interesting thing is that the podcast is all about people not feeling alone and understanding that the things that are happening in their lives, other people have experienced something similar, or maybe even the exact same thing. So did you have any wake-up calls in your life that really kind of motivated you and took you further down your path?
I think for me, a big wake-up call was growing up in Oklahoma. I grew up in Southern Oklahoma. I felt very different. I was, the white musical theater kid that was, pretty effeminate and pretty obviously gay, and really loved Wonder Woman and that kind of stuff, but also really loved Oprah at a young age. And there was a lot of different shows that connected me to just that show. the Oprah Winfrey Show, because most boys in Oklahoma watch the Oprah Winfrey Show when they're in middle school events. But one of the things that really connected me was, I'll never forget, and I don't remember the woman's name, but I remember they were talking about, there was like a big consignment sale where Oprah sold a lot of her clothes. And this one woman bought a pair of Oprah shoes. And she said that she every morning would, the shoes didn't fit her. They were too big, but she didn't care. She would put the shoes in front of her mirror and she would stand in front of her mirror. And she said, and I would stand in your shoes until I could stand in my own. And I related so much to her. And I was a kid at the time. This was a middle-aged Black woman from Chicago. And I felt like she was me. So that was a moment for me that changed that, I could connect with people that don't look like me, that don't act like me, that don't have the same belief system that I believe in, that I truly have the ability to connect with everyone. And that whole adage, that's cliche, but true, that we really are more alike than we are different.
For sure. Where have you found the most difficulty in being able to connect?
I feel like, honestly, answer that as a two-parter. Answer that as a podcaster and as personal. From a podcaster perspective, and maybe you found this too, it's, and I'm saying maybe it's personal and podcast, but I get bored if we're not having a kind of honestly an authentic conversation. If we're not actually, and I'm not saying you need to meet me and be like, hi, Matt, I have mommy issues and let's talk about, I have a drinking problem. No, I don't need to know those things in the first 5 minutes of your life. It's not about that, but it's like when I was dating, I have a boyfriend now for years, but when I was dating, the first kind of question I learned to start asking people when I dated was not what they did for a living, but I asked what they were passionate about. And if someone had an answer for that pretty quickly, then I knew that I could connect with them and probably continue on trying out, possibly dating, because it was the people that didn't have a response to that I didn't feel like were connected. So that's the same, I guess, in my podcast world as well, is that, sometimes we always, have a friend of a friend said, hey, have this person on. And for the most part, I've been pretty lucky, but every once in a while you'll get someone that you feel like is on your podcast that just wants to promote their book or just wants to kind of like sell something or get rich from a podcast, which you don't get rich from doing podcasts. We do this because we love it. I don't know why. I'm not making money from it. So I want to give that person a wake-up call. But so I think that is my biggest challenge. It's just connecting with people like that. But then also, as I say that, I feel like, but then it's also my job as a person, as a therapist, as an empath, as a podcaster host. If somebody is presenting that to me, it's also my job to kind of figure out, well, how can I connect with them? How can I strategize, be different, and have a decent, authentic conversation?
It's interesting that you mentioned empath and passion together. So it's very interesting for me. We're into passion too at Imagine Miracles, and we want people to find their passion. But one of the things that we noticed is that people seem to believe that passion needs to look a certain way. Give us your definition of passion.
I think that the fact that you're just asking what my definition of passion is, I think that's one of the first things that people listening can do is ask themselves, what is the definition of passion? Because we talk a lot about what's the definition of success, but we often don't talk about passion in that way. So for me, I think the definition of passion is something that the things I'm passionate about, when I'm feeling passionate, if I'm kind of if I think about when are those moments that I think that I feel passionate, those moments that I feel passionate is when I feel like I'm doing exactly what the universe and God, whatever you believe in, your higher power, I'm doing exactly what my higher power wants me to be doing right now in this universe. And that could sometimes be playing tennis and feeling the breeze on my face and being really connected, hitting the tennis ball and working on my tennis game. Or that could be having this really great conversation with you here while, I hear the wind rattling my windows because it's windy and sunny outside in California. So I think for me, that's really what that definition is.
And I agree with you 100% in the fact that once we find ourselves, once we're really in tune to ourselves, every little thing around us is an opportunity to live our passion and to truly bring us out into the world. And it's not about being what everybody else wants you to be. It's about being yourself in a way that you feel good, and in you feeling good, that's where you're really going to change the world. And I know that you've worked really hard to be that and to bring that to all the people that you come into contact with. So I appreciate you giving us that definition, because it really, really enlightens people on it's coming from the inside. So thank you very much for that.
Of course.
Speaking of your talents and gifts, and you've rattled off several of them already, and I appreciate who you are and what you bring to the world. How are you bringing, through an act of love, your gifts and talents to the world so others can share theirs? And if you don't remember, that's our definition of miracle.
I honestly feel like the first word, I mean, that there's a lot of ways I can answer that question, but the first thing that kind of came through me, I feel honestly, is humor. I come from a big Southern family. Everyone is just, we are funny. We try to be. And we're always, we are that family that will make a joke at, Uncle Andy's funeral. We'll just do that. But then we laugh. What I feel like is laughter is so healing. Whether it's trauma or nervousness or anxiety, like, again, when you're truly laughing, you're present, you're in the moment. And to laugh is to be connected to, whether it's you're watching a show, a comedian, the other person you're joking with, you were connected in that moment when you were laughing together. And I think the only other feeling that it encompasses that, because if you're angry and you're in a mob together, you could be angry, but you're still thinking of other things. But if you're laughing, or if you're truly crying, those are really kind of the spectrums of when you really are present with people. So for me, I feel like, that's, I try to obviously talk about serious topics. I've had, talked about, Dear Maddie's an advice podcast. So I've had advice questions that are lighthearted, and advice questions to, how do I tell someone I was sexually assaulted, or how, and I'm not saying we joke about that, but I am saying that we do try to find just the humanity of it in every episode. And it's, I think that's just important that, for at least for me on my show, that things can be serious, but I also choose to look at life through, not a necessarily not a quite so serious lens. It's just not my, and not that my way's right. It's just not my worldview.
Well, especially when you're looking at things from a not so serious lens, as you put it, the tendency is to get wrapped up in our old story. Yeah. And when I think, if I remember correctly, I think you said it on the podcast that I had with you, that when we learn to laugh at ourselves, when we learn to find the humor in our life, is really when we're opening ourselves up to taking a step that we normally wouldn't have taken. So right on target there for what we were sharing. Tell me, who's been the miracle in your life?
I mean, I had a flood of so many people, really so many women, honestly. I'm so grateful for just a lot of the women in my life. I think, though, I think probably the, one of the people that are, I feel like, obviously my partner, and but I kind of want to talk about in this world. I kind of think one of the miracles of my life were my friend Dawn McCoy. She's actually a podcaster as well. She has a podcast called Dine and Dish with Dawn, and she's an influencer and all that kind of stuff. But we met walking each other's dogs here in Los Angeles. And she's from Texas. I'm from Oklahoma. Her mom's from Oklahoma. So we have this whole Southern connection, and we're best friends now. But why she's a miracle in my life is she is such an incredible hard worker. And she's also a miracle because she's one of those friends who doesn't tell me what what I want to hear. She tells me what she feels like is the reality of the situation. And it's not always sugar-coated, and sometimes it's blunt, but it's never mean. It's never vindictive. The intention of it behind is, I want to help. I love you. I want to help you. I want to protect you. I want you to be the best version of you. And so there's really not, I think a lot of people, there's a difference between being nice and being kind. I think like Brene Brown. I love Brene Brown. I'm reading her right now. We can talk about that later with book stuff. But one of the things she talks about in talking about leadership is she talks about that there's this way of talking to leaders of what is the difference between being a nice leader and being kind, and that it's kinder actually for a leader to tell someone they're not doing a good job and they need to be let go of a company, or to give them the criticism to hopefully improve themselves so they won't be let go of the company. So that way they can be a better version of them. They can help the company, or they can go on and be better and live in their company that they're supposed to live in. Rather, so many leaders don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want them to feel that terrible word, bad. We don't want people to feel bad. And so we, quote unquote, save their feelings at the expense of the relationship. That's usually what happens when you save your feelings. You're then sacrificing the relationship. And I just love that. Dawn's a miracle for me because I don't think she's never saved her feelings from me, and nor have I. It's taught me to do that with her as well.
Excellent. Very, very important lessons in life there. So as you share the miracle of you in the world, I know that there's more and more and more out there from Matt Marr. Could you share something with the audience that's to come in your world so we can bring the collective energy of the imagination together to help you manifest that?
You know, it's interesting that you say that today because I'm into crystals. I'm in California. I have crystals. I hold them when I meditate. I just cleansed them last night because it was a full moon, the blood moon. Yes, I'm a hippy dippy crunchy in California, but I'm in this place that I am, I'm wanting to change the focus of Dear Maddie a little bit. And that's so hard for me because that's such a close heart space to me. But again, it's letting go of that ego that even Dear Maddie is not who I am, even though it's really close to me. It's not who I am as a person. And, I've been doing it now in July. It's going to be 5 years. I'm 150 episodes in. So it's okay to feel I want to mix it up and do something different. So I'm kind of in the word of that dreaded word, rebranding. But also though, I want to, honestly, I really want to have deeper conversations with that. So for me was I felt like today was going to be a day of action for me and like, go, get things done, really kind of figure out this show. And honestly, it was a day of action, but it was a day of thinking. And I don't think we give ourselves permission to think a lot. But I mean, I just sat here and I think I thought, and maybe wrote some notes down, but I thought for about 3.5 hours. And I thought, when's the last time I gave myself permission to actually stop and just think and recognize that thinking is action. Thinking is doing. Thinking is working towards something. It might not be an email. It might not be an app. It might not be a website, but it is really, that's the main step you need to take before I feel like it's the foundation for the other action steps to happen. So if people could just, honestly just send me, I appreciate the thoughts of just helping me just think and kind of sort through my thoughts, because that's kind of where I am in that process right now.
Excellent. We're sending you the energy to make sure that all happens and supported, and we hold the space for you into the ability to think. And boy, I have to agree with you. There's sometimes that I didn't spend enough time thinking, and the next thing you knew, I had to go back and think a little bit to make up for all the craziness that I created because I didn't.
After that, sugar. Amen.
I knew I'd get a sugar out of you somewhere in this podcast.
It always happens.
I love it. Now I feel complete. Matt, could you share what you think the biggest thing holding you back right now from experiencing the life that you want?
I mean, honestly, it's so I take a kind of a breath and I feel my chest relax because it's nothing. There's nothing holding me back to live the life I want except for me and, the ego of my mind. And again, as a narrative therapist, we always talk about, I'm not, if I'm anxious, I'm not an anxious person. I just have a relationship with anxiety. Anxiety is a character in my life. Depression can be character in your life. Passivity can be a character in your life, or fear is a character. So it's sometimes that character of fear sometimes takes the pen and is writing my story for a couple of chapters because I'm just too scared to kind of take the leap and do something. So for me, it's all about trying to be clear and trying to be grounded so that way I'm the one that is writing my story. But again, it's the easiest thing to say, and I think it's the hardest thing to do because I don't know if it ever stops. I don't think age helps. I'm about to turn 40 in March, and I definitely feel the coulda, shoulda, wouldas drop off a little more the older I get. But still, that's a lifelong process for me of always checking in with myself and making sure that I'm just giving myself permission to be.
That's very interesting. So I'm 60. And there's some shoulda, woulda, couldas.
I hope I look like you when I'm 60. You ain't got a wrinkle one. You got the pretty eyes and that hair. Good for you. Live your best life.
And I still get the shoulda, woulda, couldas though, Matt, every once in a while. And it's bringing myself back into the moment. I used to dread hearing people say you got to be in the present moment, and I really didn't understand what that meant. But I agree with you 100%. When we're writing our own chapter, we're truly in the present moment. So that's great advice, and I really appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit about Brene Brown's book. Tell us about it.
Daring to Lead. I highly, first of all, if you've never read Brene Brown, I'm about to change your life, sugars. That's what, first of all, Brene Brown is Oprah's teacher, y'all. So, it's like, she's hardcore. And I love her because she's from Texas and she is very just who she is, and really talk about someone who, as a woman, who is so comfortable in her skin. But also, one of Brene Brown's big kind of things that she's famous for is vulnerability. And that was, I'm blanking on her very first book. Something Within. Just Google it, Brene Brown, and you'll see all her books. But what I love about any of her books, but especially what I love about Daring to Lead, is that it's a different way of thinking of, I think especially in this country, in the United States, of what we think what leading is. And I think, when you're a podcaster, you think, what's the way I should be leading as a podcaster? Well, you think, I should have a podcast with, 100,000 views a month. Or listens a month. I should have, a Patreon. I should have speaking engagements. It's whatever. It's that comparison of what we use to think that we're leading. Whereas she talks a lot about how that we can cultivate courage, that courage is not something we're born with. And that she's done years and years, like 15 years of data study of leaders. And you cannot have courage and you cannot have leadership if you do not have vulnerability. Because that is what is inspiring to us when we see other leaders or other storytellers, is that they did something when they didn't necessarily know the outcome, or they knew that they could be quote unquote worse off after they did something or said something, but yet they still did it. That's why I love my friend Dawn McCoy so much from Dine and Dish with Dawn, is that she told me the truth. And that was a vulnerable moment, because I could have been like, girl, what you saying to me? We done, bye, and like ended the friendship or been upset. But instead, she was vulnerable, and therefore it made us closer as friends.
One of the talks that Mary gives is about our essence and living our day-to-day life with actions, words, examples, like you say, that truly is in alignment with our essence. And that's exactly what you were saying right there. People know the difference. If you can't be vulnerable, if you can't be someone who is willing to admit when you're wrong or show that you have weak spots, people are going to feel that, even if you try to hide it with your actions or you try to hide it with harsh words or whatever you do. And it's in that misconnect or disconnect that people aren't going to follow you because they know there's something not quite right with you. So, and I love Brené's work, and she's amazing with words and wizard with data. So
she's a data wizard. That is a great way to say that.
And so thanks for the recommendation, and we'll make sure that shows up in the show notes. How about sharing with us a parting piece of guidance? Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but give people a little bit of guidance on how to really be the miracle in their own life.
I think start small. I think that sometimes, it's that if we hear, be the miracle or be your own hero, or it might seem very grandiose and it might seem very big, and that to be the miracle in your life, you're imagining yourself being Oprah. That's not your life, sugar. It's cheap. That these people that we see have had a very, very long road, most of them, that are quote unquote successful. So for me, it's to be the miracle in your own life. It's just start with, what's the next best thing I could do? Like, what if I want to be the miracle in my own life? What's the next best thing that I could do? I haven't had time to do it today, but I can meditate after this because I was planning on doing it sometime today anyway. Doing that simple step is such a way, Before we started recording, I said, I feel good about this week because I took time. I meal prep today. I got I know I'm not going to pay for food, and I'm going to eat nutritious food this week. That can be a miracle in your own life because it's a self-care ritual, whatever that is. You got a massage earlier today. It truly is just I think when people want to take action, they freeze from taking action because they feel that the goal is too far away. So just take the next step, the first step, the next closest step. That's all you need to do. Think about the goal later.
You heard it here, folks. The miracle's in the next step. So, and it's great advice to follow. Matt, I know there's a lot of people that want to know more about you, how they can get in touch with you, where they can hear Dear Maddie. Could you share a little bit with us?
Sure. I mean, honestly, a lot kind of is really either on my website or through social media. That's kind of how you can get me the most. Again, it's Matt Marr. It's 2 T's, 2 R's. So if you go on social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, it's the Matt Marr, again, 2 T's, 2 R's. And you can go to my website, mattmarr.tv, mattmarr.tv. And that's where you can find all that information. And sugar, that's where that's usually where you can find all kind of me. I do some other totally different comedy podcasts about television shows. And so if you're into that kind of stuff, you can see all that there too.
Matt, thanks for sharing yourself with us today. We truly appreciate you being here. On behalf of Mary, my wife and business partner, we want to wish you a miracle day.
Thank you so much, Vince. Loved you both.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleyou.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 mind-awakening steps toward your unique purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleyou.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.